My daughter chose her bio mom over us, threatened my wife, and got cut off. Now she says I'm the reason her life fell apart. I'm here on Reddit today because something happened that I never saw coming. Years back, when I was still in high school, my girlfriend at the time, her name was Gigi, ended up getting pregnant. It caught us both off guard. We'd always been careful, but sometimes life just throws you a curveball, whether you're ready for it or not. When Gigi found out she was expecting, she completely lost it. Modeling had always been her dream, and to her, being pregnant meant waving goodbye to all of that. She'd spent her college years hustling, doing part-time jobs and going to auditions, and I knew how badly she wanted that life. I truly understood where she was coming from and made it clear that no matter what she decided, I'd stand by her. I needed her to know she wasn't alone in this. But then we got hit with some tough news. The pregnancy was too far along to even consider an abortion. That hit Gigi hard. To her, it felt like her future was slipping right through her fingers, and it left her in a really rough spot emotionally. Our families didn't exactly see eye to eye on what to do next. My parents were quick to step up, offering their full support. They told us they'd do whatever it took to help us and make sure the baby had a good life. On the other hand, Gigi and her mom had a very different outlook. They were completely set on putting the baby up for adoption once she was born. Gigi's mom believed that was the only way her daughter could chase her dreams without being tied down or feeling guilty. But my parents and I were strongly against giving the baby up. I kept telling Gigi and her mom that I was willing to raise the child on my own. I promised that Gigi wouldn't have to lift a finger if she didn't want to. I tried everything to show them that we could make it work and keep our child in the picture. Still, they didn't budge. Gigi especially was firm on not wanting to keep the baby, and her main concern was that if she handed the child over to me, I might try to drag her back into the picture later. She wanted to cut all ties and move on completely, no strings, no drama, no guilt. I spent days pleading with her, assuring her over and over that once she gave up her parental rights, I'd never bother her again about the baby. I swore she could go live her life and never have to think about any of this again. Eventually, she and her mom agreed, and that's exactly what we did. After Gigi gave birth to our baby girl, Diana, she focused on her recovery and went back to chasing her dreams. Meanwhile, my parents and I stepped in and took over full-time care of Diana. In the beginning, juggling my college classes while looking after a newborn wasn't easy, but I've never once regretted my choice. Watching Diana grow up brought me more happiness and purpose than I ever thought possible. Gigi completely cut ties after that. Throughout the rest of college, she never reached out or asked about Diana, and I kept my promise and never contacted her either. All my attention was on raising my daughter and trying to give her a good life. Diana became my whole world, and the love I felt for her ran deeper than I could ever explain. They say there's something special about the bond between a father and his daughter, and the first time I held her in that hospital room, I knew exactly what they meant. Holding her in my arms felt like my entire life had just shifted, like everything important suddenly centered around her. I can't even tell you how many times my classmates poked fun at me for becoming a dad so young. They joked that I was missing out on the real college experience, that I should be out partying instead of changing diapers and packing bottles. But honestly, I didn't care what they thought. They didn't understand the connection I had with Diana, or how meaningful it was to watch her smile, to see her hit every little milestone. Yeah, my college years looked nothing like theirs, but I wouldn't change a single thing. Every late night feeding, every first word, every hug, it all made the sacrifices worth it. I worked my butt off to keep my grades up and held a part-time job to support Diana. Being a single parent is no joke, and I'm beyond grateful for my parents during that time. They stepped up in big ways, whether it was babysitting during my late-night study sessions or just being there to listen when I needed to vent. Their support was everything. Because of them, I managed to stay focused and not feel completely buried by the pressure. When I finally finished college, landed a steady job, and saved up enough money, I was thrilled to get our own place, just me and Diana. That moment was huge. I poured my heart into setting up our little home. I picked out furniture with care, decorated her room, and tried to make it a warm, safe space for both of us. It wasn't just about having a place to stay, it was about building a home filled with love and new memories. Those first few years on our own, it was just me and her. I'd go to work, pick her up from daycare, and we'd head home together. After a quick freshen up, I'd help her with her homework while I cooked dinner and packed her lunch for school. Eventually, I got the hang of managing everything, though there were still times when I had to call on my parents for help when things got overwhelming. But no matter how tired I got, I never let Diana feel alone. I was always there, doing my best. Being her dad was my #1 job, and seeing her grow up happy and healthy made everything worthwhile. When Diana turned 5, I met the woman who would later become both her stepmother and the love of my life, Chloe. At the time, Chloe was coming out of a rough divorce from an abusive relationship, but even with that painful history, she carried herself with warmth and grace. What truly captured my heart wasn't just her resilience, it was the way she instantly connected with Diana. She treated her with so much love and care, like Diana was already a part of her heart. Chloe understood just how much my daughter meant to me, and instead of being intimidated by that bond, she embraced it completely. Watching the two of them grow close and seeing how effortlessly Chloe stepped into a nurturing role made me realize this was the woman I wanted by my side for life. When Chloe and I tied the knot, Diana was our flower girl. I still look at those precious wedding photos sometimes, the ones where she's glued to our sides throughout the whole ceremony, her little face beaming with joy. That day was filled with so much happiness, and it meant everything to have her be such a special part of it. Our family was wrapped in love and support, and my parents, especially, were over the moon. They knew how hard I'd fought to get to that point, and seeing me finally happy with a partner and a stable home brought them to tears. It truly was a beautiful day, full of love, laughter, and hope for the future. Over time, Chloe continued to show just how much she cared for Diana. She wasn't just playing the role of a stepmom, she loved that little girl like her own flesh and blood. After we bought a bigger home together and settled in, life felt steady, until everything changed. I lost both of my parents to health issues not long after the move, and their passing hit me harder than I expected. I was drowning in grief, and because of that, I know I started falling short on giving Diana the attention she was used to. It was during that rough patch that Diana began getting bullied at school. A few of her classmates, egged on by gossiping moms, found out that Chloe wasn't her biological mother. The fact that Chloe had light blonde hair and more angular features, while Diana had dark curls and softer features, made the difference pretty obvious. Kids can be cruel, and those so-called friends started picking on her relentlessly. They said awful things like her real mom must have abandoned her because she didn't love her, and that Chloe would eventually walk away too. The bullying slowly chipped away at Diana, making her withdrawn and sad. But I didn't see it. She kept all that pain bottled up, and I was so wrapped up in my own grief that I missed the signs. Everything came to a head one day when I got a call from her school. The principal told me Diana had allegedly attacked another student and broken the girl's nose. I was completely stunned. Diana had always been a gentle, kind kid. Hearing that she'd gotten violent didn't make any sense. Chloe and I rushed to the school, full of worry and confusion. Once we got to the principal's office, the whole story came out. Turns out Diana had been the target of nonstop bullying from that same girl, and one day she just snapped. In a moment of pure frustration and hurt, she threw a rock and hit the girl square in the face. Hearing what Diana had been through broke my heart. I felt this mix of anger and sorrow boiling inside me. I wanted to confront that girl and her parents on the spot. I was ready to raise hell if that's what it took to protect my daughter. But Chloe, always the steady one between us, managed to calm me down. The other girl's parents demanded that Diana apologize, but I wasn't having it. I told them straight up that I was considering legal action against them and the school for allowing their daughter to torment mine unchecked. I laid it all out, the severity of bullying, the emotional toll it had taken on Diana, and how they'd failed to protect her. I wasn't yelling, I was deliberate and firm. And I think the seriousness in my tone rattled them because they backed off and chose not to push the issue any further. I never punished Diana for what happened. Deep down, I knew that this outburst didn't come from nowhere, it was the result of months of silent suffering. And while it broke my heart that she'd been pushed that far, a part of me was proud that she finally stood up for herself, even if it happened in a moment of anger. After that incident, I knew we couldn't avoid the topic of her biological mother any longer. Up until then, Diana had some basic understanding that her birth mom wasn't around, but I'd never gone into detail. It was time for an honest talk. So I sat her down and explained how Gigi and I had become parents way too young, and how Gigi, for her own reasons, decided she couldn't stay. I made sure Diana understood that Gigi's decision to leave had nothing to do with her. Some people, I told her, just aren't ready to be parents, and Gigi was one of them. But I also wanted to remind her how lucky she was to have someone like Chloe in her life. I told her Chloe loved her deeply and treated her like her own, always putting her needs first. I wanted Diana to know that real family isn't just about blood, it's about love, and the people who show up for you every single day. I thought that conversation had helped her find peace, but a few weeks later, Diana came to me and said she was trying to reach out to Gigi. My heart sank. I knew just how strongly Gigi had insisted on no contact all those years ago, and I was scared Diana might get her hopes up only to be hurt. Even though I warned her, Diana was set on making that connection. She said she needed to know for herself. And when Gigi finally responded, Diana came to me beaming, telling me that her biological mom was excited to hear from her and wanted to meet up. I had a hard time believing that. For all these years, Gigi had never once tried to reach out, not a phone call, not a letter. My number and address never changed, and yet she stayed completely silent. I told Diana I was skeptical about Gigi's sudden interest, and that I didn't want her to get hurt. But Diana didn't share my doubts. She was so hopeful, so eager. She genuinely believed every word Gigi said. She made plans to meet her mom at a mall and insisted on going alone. I told Diana flat out that I had to at least drive her to the mall to make sure Gigi actually showed up. She wasn't thrilled about it, but after a little back and forth, she finally agreed to let me take her and see for myself. The day of the meeting, I was a bundle of nerves. As we pulled into the mall parking lot, my eyes immediately started scanning the crowd. A part of me honestly expected Gigi not to come at all. But then Diana suddenly lit up, pointing excitedly at someone in the distance. I followed her gaze, and sure enough, there she was. Gigi. She looked genuinely happy to see Diana, and they hugged like they'd known each other forever. It was surreal, watching my daughter reconnect with her biological mother like that. I kept my distance, letting them have their moment, but I stayed close enough to keep an eye on things. Seeing Diana smile like that, seeing her so openly joyful, started to chip away at some of the doubts I'd been holding onto. Whatever my personal feelings were, it was obvious that this reunion meant a great deal to her. Gigi approached me politely, thanked me for bringing Diana, and promised she'd bring her back home after they had some time to talk. She seemed sincere. She even expressed gratitude for the chance to reconnect with her daughter. I wasn't sure what to make of it, but I decided to step back and give them the space they needed. Several hours later, just like she said, Gigi dropped Diana back off at home. Diana came in glowing, clearly thrilled about how things had gone. When I asked her how it went, she couldn't wait to tell me how wrong I'd been about Gigi. She said Gigi had expressed deep regret about not being there for her, that she seemed truly sorry for the decisions she made in the past. According to Diana, Gigi wanted to be in her life now, and Diana wanted that too. Hearing all of that stirred up some complicated feelings inside me. On one hand, I was relieved that Diana had a positive experience. If nothing else, I was glad she didn't walk away from the meeting heartbroken. But there was still a part of me that felt uneasy. Gigi's sudden change of heart after so many years just didn't sit right with me. I had a hard time shaking the feeling that something wasn't quite adding up. Chloe, being the calm voice of reason, reminded me that there was only so much I could control. She said all we could do was trust that Gigi wouldn't hurt Diana again and hope for the best. Over the next few weeks, Diana started seeing Gigi pretty regularly. They met up every other weekend for a few hours, and at first, I supported it. I wanted to be open-minded and allow Diana the space to explore this new relationship with her biological mother. But then I started noticing something strange. Before each visit, Diana would ask me for money. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured she just wanted a little spending money for lunch or something. But eventually, it became clear that she was footing the bill for everything whenever they went out. That made me uneasy. I gently asked Diana why Gigi wasn't paying for their meals. She explained that Gigi was going through some financial trouble, but promised me she was actively looking for a job and would get back on her feet soon. As odd as the setup was, I let it slide. Diana was happy, and I didn't want to create any extra tension over money if this connection was bringing her peace. I just wanted her to feel supported, whatever that looked like. But soon, other problems started surfacing. Things began to disappear around the house. At first, it was small stuff, Chloe's vintage teacups and saucers that had been passed down from her grandmother, things we assumed had just been misplaced. But then Chloe noticed some of her pricier clothes and even lingerie were gone. That's when we realized something was really wrong. We were confused and disturbed. None of it made sense. Who could be taking these things? Naturally, we turned to Diana, hoping maybe she'd seen something or had an idea. But every time we asked, she swore up and down that she didn't know anything. She even blamed Chloe, suggesting she was probably just being forgetful or careless. Chloe didn't buy it. She pushed for us to install cameras around the shared areas of the house, just to be sure. I hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. Not long after, something big happened. One day, Chloe came home from the gym and noticed her wedding ring was missing. She always left it on our bedside table before workouts, same as I did with mine. We both took care of those rings, they were meaningful and expensive, and neither of us would ever be careless with them. When she couldn't find it anywhere, panic set in. That night, we sat down together and reviewed the security footage to see if maybe we could catch anything that would explain the missing ring. What we saw floored us. There on the screen was Diana, walking into our bedroom while we were both out. She rifled through our things, then walked out with something small in her hand. A closer look confirmed it, Chloe's wedding ring. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe it, but there it was, undeniable proof. When I confronted Diana later that night, she tried to deny it at first. I stayed calm and simply showed her the footage. Her face went pale as the truth hit her. She'd been caught red-handed. I sat down next to her, trying to stay composed. I didn't want to yell. I just wanted to understand. Why? Why would she do something like this? Chloe gently asked if she had also taken the missing clothes and lingerie. That's when Diana completely broke down. She started sobbing and, through the tears, admitted that yes, she'd been stealing from Chloe. 4 months, actually. And when we asked why, she said it was revenge. Diana finally told us the truth. She admitted she had started resenting the fact that Chloe and I were married. She said she wanted me to break things off with Chloe and give her biological mother, Gigi, another chance. According to Diana, Gigi still had feelings for me and regretted how things ended between us. I was stunned and honestly, angry. I tried to keep my voice steady as I explained to her that she was being incredibly unrealistic. I made it very clear that my relationship with Chloe was solid, that my commitment to her hadn't wavered one bit, and whatever connection Diana wanted to have with her birth mother had nothing to do with my marriage. I told her the past couldn't be rewritten. Expecting me to leave the woman I love because of some fantasy she'd built up in her mind, it just wasn't fair. But Diana didn't take that well. Her emotions exploded, and suddenly she was yelling, accusing me of being the one who abandoned Gigi. She shouted that Chloe could never replace her real mom and insisted that I should at least try to be with Gigi for her sake, because she'd always dreamed of having her biological parents together. Her outburst hit me like a punch to the gut. I told her straight up how exhausting it was to hear this kind of immature talk after everything I had sacrificed for her. I reminded her of how much Chloe had given, how she'd treated Diana like her own daughter from the beginning, how much love and patience she had shown. And now here Diana was completely dismissing all of that, acting like none of it mattered. Then things took a terrifying turn. Diana looked me in the eye and threatened to accuse Chloe of sexual assault and grooming if I didn't leave her immediately. I was absolutely horrified. I had no idea where she even got that idea. She said she'd seen enough documentaries to know how to make a case stick and that if she went through with it, Chloe could end up behind bars for life, and I'd lose her forever. I asked her if she'd lost her mind. This wasn't some petty argument, she was threatening to ruin a person's life. And her response? She told me she'd make Chloe's life as miserable as possible unless I started dating her biological mother. I just sat there, speechless, looking at my daughter and feeling a mix of disgust and fear. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she'd fully bought into some twisted fantasy, and worse, I began to suspect Gigi had been feeding her this nonsense. When Chloe found out what Diana had said, she didn't hesitate. She told me she couldn't live under the same roof as our daughter anymore, not with someone who had threatened to destroy her life with a lie. And honestly, I understood. Chloe had every reason to be afraid. That kind of false accusation, even from a child, could ruin someone's life. I knew I couldn't let Diana walk away from this without facing some real consequences. So I sat her down and told her that since she believed in her biological mother so much, and she'd be turning 18 soon anyway, it was time for her to go live with Gigi. I promised I would continue supporting her financially until she turned 18, but I made it clear she couldn't live with us anymore. I also told her she'd need to figure out how to pay for college herself either through scholarships, loans, or help from her beloved biomom. What she didn't know was that Chloe had actually set up a trust fund for her college expenses. But after everything that happened, I didn't feel right giving her access to it. We decided to revoke it. Diana was furious. She tried to argue, threw more vile threats at me, and screamed about ruining my life and career, but I didn't back down. I picked up the phone and called Gigi, telling her to come get her daughter. Gigi showed up without a hint of shame. I confronted her, asking why she would poison Diana's mind like that. But she just shrugged and said it was Diana's dream to see us back together and that it wasn't too late for us to give it a shot. Her words made my skin crawl. I told her I was done talking, handed Diana some cash, and watched as the two of them packed up and drove away. After that, Diana never reached out. I still sent her money every week, but there was no contact. Eventually, I heard Diana had graduated high school and been accepted into a solid university on a partial scholarship. Then, unsurprisingly, Gigi reached out asking me to cover the rest of the tuition. She said Diana shouldn't have to take out loans. I told her bluntly that millions of students take out loans every year, and if Diana needed one, that was part of growing up. I reminded her that she was the one who twisted our daughter's mind against us, not me. I'd done more than my part already. Since Diana was legally an adult, Gigi couldn't force anything out of me. After that call, I blocked her. I needed peace. Months went by. I didn't hear from either of them. Then, out of the blue, Diana called. She was crying, desperate, begging me to listen. I was in the middle of an important meeting, but I walked out without hesitation. I still loved her, no matter what. She told me Gigi hadn't helped her secure housing near her college, and she'd ended up losing her spot at the university. Now she was working at a fast food place and paying rent to Gigi, no less. Apparently, her bio mom wouldn't let her live there for free. Diana asked if she could come back home. She apologized, said she wanted to say sorry to both Chloe and me in person. She admitted I'd been right all along about Gigi. But then she also blamed me for not teaching her better. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but after what she'd threatened before, I couldn't let her live with us again. That fear still sat heavy on my chest. So I offered her what I thought was fair. I told her I'd pay her rent directly each month, so she could move out of Gigi's place and save her own money. I also promised to help with college eventually. But the moment I said she couldn't move back in, she exploded. She cursed at me, hurled insults at Chloe, called me useless, and even said she wished I was dead. It broke my heart, but it also showed me she still hadn't learned what she needed to. Despite that, I stood my ground. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for not letting my daughter move back in or forgiving her completely after everything? Update 1. Just to clarify a few things, I now realize that Diana's attitude toward Chloe had been shifting long before things blew up. Every time she came back from seeing Gigi, she'd start acting colder toward Chloe. She even called her names like old hag during arguments. We thought she was just going through a rebellious phase, but clearly, it was more than that. Threatening someone with false allegations of sexual assault is no small matter, regardless of gender. If Diana had followed through, Chloe's life could have been ruined, and the authorities would have taken it seriously. I can't in good conscience ask my wife to live under the same roof as someone who threatened her that way and still clearly despises her. And no, I didn't refuse to pay for Diana's education out of spite. I wanted her to finally see what her bio mom was, or wasn't, willing to sacrifice for her. If we keep shielding our kids from consequences, what are we really teaching them? Update 2. Diana has agreed to let me help her with rent. She's currently apartment hunting. Based on your advice, I'll be sending the checks directly to her new landlord so Gigi can't get her hands on any of it. As for college, I plan to have a serious talk with her soon. But this time, Chloe won't be involved. She doesn't owe Diana anything, and I respect that. Update 3. Diana's now settled into her new place. We met up for lunch recently and talked about her future. She apologized, genuinely this time, and said she finally understands why Chloe can't have a relationship with her anymore. I told her I appreciated the apology, and if she's serious about starting college next year, I'll be there to support her. Gigi, of course, is furious now that she's lost control of Diana's income. But there's nothing she can do. I blocked her, and Diana's done talking to her too.